The California morning sun mercilessly illuminated what just yesterday had been a simple luxury mansion in an upscale Oakland neighborhood. Today it was a crime scene. Yellow police tape fluttered in the light breeze, shielding the grounds of Penelope Harvey's home from the outside world and the curious stares of the neighbors who had already begun to gather in small groups across the street. Detective Keisha Thompson stepped out of her car, hand holding the folder of preliminary information. In her 42 years, she'd seen enough crime to be unimpressed by luxury or the status of the victim. But something about this case already seemed unusual to her. A wealthy 60-year-old widow murdered in her own home. There weren't many cases like this in their neighborhood. Logan Sharp, her partner, was already checking the perimeter when she approached. Tall, trim, with the keen eye of a methodical analyst, he nodded to her and pointed to the main entrance. The body was discovered by the housekeeper around 7 this morning. Came in as usual, found the front door ajar, he said, making notes in his notebook. The coroner's office is here, and the preliminary time of death is between 22 and 24 last night. Keisha nodded and headed toward the house, noting every detail. The front door was intact, no sign of forced entry. So either the victim had opened the door herself to the killer, or he had a key. The spacious hallway, decorated with marble and expensive woods, was chaotic, atypical for a house of this caliber. An overturned vase, scattered belongings, signs of a struggle. Patrol officers had already taken initial photos, and forensic scientists in white jumpsuits were methodically gathering evidence. Detective Thompson, the medical examiner, Dr. Reynolds, nodded to her as she entered the living room where Penelope Harvey's body lay on the floor. The woman was dressed in elegant domestic attire, a silk blouse and pants, as if she was preparing for a guest or had just returned from a night out. Dark blood contrasted with the white carpet beneath her. The blow had been delivered from behind by a heavy object, a bronze statue that lay nearby. "Looks like a robbery gone wrong, doesn't it?" Logan suggested, pointing to the open drawers of the secretary and the scattered papers. "Maybe," Keisha nodded, looking around the room. "But something's not right here. Look, all the valuables are still there. Paintings, silver, electronics. Who robs a house and doesn't take what's in plain sight?" Logan frowned and walked over to the secretary. "Everything in here is upside down. Were you looking for anything in particular? Papers? Maybe a safe?" "Check to see if there's a safe and what's in it," Keisha ordered, and headed for the victim's bedroom. Penelope Harvey's bedroom reflected her status and taste: antique furniture, expensive fabrics, elaborate details. On the bedside table was a photograph of a middle-aged man, the late husband, Keisha assumed. Keisha opened the nightstand drawer and found a stack of letters tied with ribbon. The letters were handwritten on plain paper, but the handwriting was elegant, educated. She unfolded the top one. "Dear Penelope, thank you for your last letter and the books you sent. Your kindness is a ray of light in this gloomy place. I often think of our conversations, your travel stories, and the world that awaits me beyond these walls." The letter was signed, "With deepest respect, Marcus Williams." Keisha looked through a few more letters, then found a neat folder in her dresser with copies of Penelope's letters. The correspondence had been going on for about a year, growing more and more personal and intimate. "Logan," she called out to her partner, "I need information on an inmate named Marcus Williams from San Quentin. According to the letters, the victim had a romantic relationship with him." Logan raised his eyebrows, but nodded and pulled out his cell phone. "I'll find out in a moment." He returned a few minutes later, looking something up on his phone. "Marcus Williams, 30 years old, convicted of financial fraud for 3 years. Good behavior, parole?" He looked up at Keisha. 2 weeks ago." Keisha froze, looking at the last letter in the stack. It was dated a month earlier and contained the lines, "Soon I will have my freedom, and perhaps we can meet in person. That thought warms me on my most difficult days. We need to find this Marcus Williams and find out if he's met the victim since his release," Keisha said, carefully putting the letters back together. "But let's not jump to conclusions. We need to gather more information first." At that moment, there was a noise outside. Keisha went to the window and saw a patrol officer trying to hold back a young woman, frantically demanding to be let into the house. "I'm her niece! You have to let me in!" screamed the woman. Keisha reached down and nodded to the officer, allowing the woman to pass. In front of her stood a slender woman in her late 40s, wearing expensive but slightly wrinkled clothes with a nervous, haggard face. "Lauren Harvey?" Keisha asked. "I'm Detective Keisha Thompson. I'm sorry for your loss." Lauren gave her a tense look. "What happened? I was told that my aunt, that her—" She couldn't bring herself to say the word murdered. "Let's go into the study where we can talk," Keisha suggested softly, leading the woman away from where Penelope's body lay. In the study, decorated in austere colors with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, Keisha sat Lauren down and began asking the standard questions. When was the last time she'd seen her aunt? Was she aware of any threats or problems? Was Penelope someone with whom she had a strained relationship? Lauren answered confusedly, glancing at her phone often, as if expecting an important call. "We haven't been very close lately," she admitted. "I was here, I think it was a week ago. My aunt never talked about problems. She was a pretty private person." "What about a romantic relationship?" Keisha asked. "Had she had anyone lately?" Lauren let out a nervous laugh. "At her aunt's? She was 60, Detective. As far as I know, she hadn't had anyone since Uncle Robert died. She'd gone completely into her business." Keisha watched Lauren's reaction carefully, but made no mention of the letters. It was still early. "Where were you last night? Between 22 and 24 hours?" Asked suddenly by Logan, who had quietly entered the office and stood at the door. Lauren flinched, as if just noticing his presence. "Me? I was at home. I was watching a show on Netflix and went to bed early. I had an important meeting today. Was—" She stopped talking, nervously fiddling with the pendant around her neck. "Could anyone confirm that?" Logan continued. "I live alone," Lauren replied sharply. "So, no one can confirm it. But you don't think I—" "These are standard questions, Miss Harvey," Keisha reassured her. "We have to ask them. Did your aunt leave a will?" That question clearly made Lauren even more excited. "Yes, of course she did. I'm her only relative. Everything should go to me." She tried to maintain an indifferent expression, but Keisha could see the worry in her eyes. "Look, when can I get access to the house? I have some personal things here." "I'm afraid this is a crime scene, Miss Harvey," Logan said firmly. "Access will be restricted for the next few days." Lauren stood up abruptly. "I understand. Then I'll be on my way. Here's my business card. Call me if you need any more information." She handed Keisha a business card for New Horizons, the non-profit organization where Lauren was the development director. After Lauren left, Logan exchanged glances with Keisha. "Did you notice how nervous she was at the question about the will? And how she was in a hurry to get access to the house?" Keisha nodded. "Check her financial situation. I wonder how much she needs her aunt's money." "What about this Marcus Williams?" Logan asked. "Do you think there's a connection?" "I don't know yet," Keisha answered honestly, looking at the picture of Penelope with her husband on the table. "But a 60-year-old lonely rich woman having a romantic correspondence with a 30-year-old prisoner who is suddenly released from prison, and soon after, she's found dead. That's a lot of coincidences," Logan agreed. "Check Williams' address after he's released. We need to talk to him." Keisha took another look around the office. "And let forensics know to run everything thoroughly for prints, especially the statue." When Logan left, Keisha was alone in Penelope Harvey's quiet office. Diplomas and awards hung on the walls, evidence of a successful career. Photos with important people at fancy events, but nowhere to be seen were pictures with her niece or other loved ones. Only her late husband watched from a frame on the table. Keisha walked over to the secretary, which had been ransacked. Drawers pulled out, contents scattered. She scrutinized the papers, business contracts, invoices, real estate documents, all organized, signed, arranged in folders. In one folder, she found bank statements from the past few months. A quick glance revealed nothing unusual, but Keisha decided to take them with her for a more detailed analysis. In the corner of the office was a safe, now open and empty. There was a jewelry box lying nearby, but the jewelry itself was gone. "Strange," Keisha muttered. "A burglar who doesn't take valuables out of sight, but takes the contents of the safe and the jewelry." This was looking more and more like a targeted robbery rather than a random attack. Someone knew where to look for the valuables. Knew about the safe. Someone Penelope trusted enough to let into the house tonight. Keisha went back to the bedroom and went over Marcus's letters one more time. His handwriting betrayed an educated man, and the content a discerning mind. He wrote about literature, art, travels he wanted to take after his release. No obvious signs of threats or manipulation, but something in his perfectly calibrated sentences alarmed Keisha. Logan appeared in the bedroom doorway with a cell phone in his hand. "I have information. Marcus Williams was paroled 2 weeks ago. Post-release address is an ex-con shelter in Richmond. But according to the last check, he failed to show up for a meeting with his parole officer 3 days ago and was not found at that address. In other words, he's on the run," Keisha summarized. "Put a bolo out on him, not as a suspect, but as a material witness." "I also checked Lauren Harvey's finances," Logan added. "She's in serious trouble. Credit card debt, unpaid mortgage, several collection agencies on her tail, and her non-profit organization is on the verge of shutting down due to lack of funding." Keisha nodded thoughtfully. So she had a motive. Perhaps she couldn't wait any longer for her inheritance. "But something doesn't add up," Logan said, looking around the room. "If she killed her aunt for money, why stage a robbery? And why the signs of a struggle? Penelope was a 60-year-old woman, and Lauren, she didn't seem like a violent person." "People are capable of a lot of things when they're cornered," Keisha countered. "But you're right, we need more data. See if there are any security cameras outside. Maybe they recorded the visitors last night." Logan nodded and walked out. Keisha took another look around Penelope Harvey's bedroom, the room of the woman whose life had been cut short so suddenly and brutally. What lurked behind those walls? What secrets did Penelope keep? And who could have wanted her dead? Keisha knew the answers to these questions were hidden somewhere here, amidst the luxury and prosperity that proved insufficient protection from the violence of the outside world. Or perhaps the danger came from within her own circle. From a niece desperate for money, or from a romantic infatuation that was perhaps just a well-crafted game. One thing Keisha was sure of was that there was more behind Penelope Harvey's facade of prosperity than met the eye. And it was up to her to unravel that tangle to find the killer. The Oakland Police Homicide Detective's office had never been a quiet place, but this morning it was particularly lively. Already pinned to the blackboard were pictures of Penelope Harvey, her mansion, and the alleged crime scene. Next to it was a picture of Lauren Harvey and information about her financial situation that Logan had gotten the night before. Keisha Thompson, with a cup of strong coffee in her hand, reviewed the timeline compiled from the available data. According to the medical examiner, death had occurred between 22 and 24 hours. Lauren claimed she was home alone, a perfect lack of an alibi. "Found something interesting." Logan placed an impressive folder on the table in front of Keisha. "Lauren Harvey's bank statements for the last 6 months. It's a disaster." Keisha opened the folder and ran her eyes over the numbers. Negative balance accounts, multiple payment denials, credit card debt. There was a separate report from a private lender, one Eric Stone, with a $45,000 late payment and a threat of foreclosure. $45,000 to a private lender? Keisha raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like a debt to a casino or a bookie." "Exactly," Logan nodded. "I checked out this Stone guy. He's known in certain circles as a middleman for underground gambling establishments. Collects debts from people who can't pay their debts on time. And what's more interesting," he continued, pulling out another folder, "Lauren tried to get a loan from her aunt 4 months ago. According to the bank records, Penelope had transferred $30,000 to her, but it hadn't been enough." Keisha tapped her fingers on the table thoughtfully. "We have a motive, a serious motive. Lauren is up to her neck in debt, creditors breathing down her neck. Her aunt is her last resort, but she's only giving her a fraction of what she needs, and as heiress to the entire fortune. She solves the problem in one fell swoop," Logan finished, "and the robbery was just a staged robbery to throw us off the scent." "What about the security cameras?" Keisha asked. "There must be a lot of them in a neighborhood like this." Logan turned on the computer and turned the monitor toward Keisha. "We have camera footage from an intersection 100 meters from Harvey's mansion. I reviewed the footage around the estimated time of death, the day of the murder. He's running the video. The dark footage from the street camera showed the intersection and part of the street leading to Penelope's house. Here, at 2130, Logan pointed to a silver sedan driving slowly down the street. That car made 2 laps around the block and then parked around the corner. He switched to another tape, from the camera of a neighboring house. And here, at 2145, we see a woman walking toward Penelope's house. She's clearly trying to keep a low profile. Keisha leaned closer. Despite the poor quality of the recording, the figure and gait were recognizable. "Lauren," she said confidently. "It's definitely her." Logan nodded. "And here she is again, leaving the house at 2230. He pointed to the same figure walking quickly in the opposite direction. "But she told us she'd been home all evening. Why lie if she had no malicious intent?" "So Lauren was the last person to see Penelope alive," Keisha said thoughtfully, "and lied to us about it." She stood up and walked over to the picture board, scrutinizing the crime scene photos. According to the coroner's report, death had occurred between 22 and 24 hours. Lauren left the house at 2230. She turned to Logan. "That doesn't rule her out as a suspect. She could have struck before she left. Or even come back later," Logan noted. The car remained parked until 2315. Keisha rubbed her chin thoughtfully. "What about Marcus Williams? Any luck finding him?" Logan shook his head. "Nothing. He checked into an ex-convict shelter in Richmond after his release, but he was only there for 3 days. Then he disappeared. Didn't show up for a meeting with his parole officer, didn't respond to attempts to contact him. He's technically wanted for a parole violation." "Is there anything unusual about his case?" Keisha asked. "You said he was in for financial fraud?" "Yeah, he created some kind of pyramid scheme, defrauded dozens of people." Logan flipped through the notes. "Interestingly, many of his victims were wealthy women over 50. Apparently, he had a knack for gaining their trust. And continued to do it even in prison," Keisha murmured. "Corresponding with a rich, single woman. It's too similar to his old handwriting." "Do you think he might have been involved?" Logan asked. "But he's not on the cameras, and according to the timeline, the crime happened when Lauren was there. Maybe they acted together?" Keisha suggested. "Maybe Williams somehow contacted Lauren after hearing from Penelope about her financial problems? Or maybe it's just a coincidence and we have 2 independent suspects." "Either way, Lauren is our prime suspect right now," Logan said. "She has motive, opportunity, was at the crime scene and lied about it. Organize a stakeout on Lauren and prepare a search warrant for her house," Keisha ordered. "And I want to talk to her again." The New Horizons office was located in a modest business center on the edge of Oakland's business district. The signage promised support for disadvantaged populations and reintegration programs for ex-prisoners, but inside the room looked almost empty. A few desks, basic office equipment, and only one employee besides Lauren. Lauren herself greeted Keisha's appearance with poorly concealed concern. She quickly ushered the detective into her tiny office and closed the door tightly. "Detective Thompson, what can I do for you? Do you have an update on the investigation?" "There are a few additional questions, Miss Harvey," Keisha said calmly as she watched the woman's reaction. "For example, why didn't you mention that you visited your aunt the evening of her death?" Lauren's face paled noticeably. "Yeah, I didn't think it was important." She looked away. "It was a short visit." "You didn't think your visit to the victim the night of the murder was important to the investigation?" Keisha raised an eyebrow. "Miss Harvey, lying to the investigation is a serious offense." Lauren sighed and nervously fixed her hair. "I was scared, okay? I knew how it would look." She met Keisha's gaze. "Yeah, I stopped by my aunt's house. I needed some money. Financial problems." $45,000 in trouble to be exact," Keisha remarked. "Eric Stone, a private lender with ties to underground casinos, quite a dangerous man to remain indebted to him." Lauren froze for a moment, then sank back into her chair as if her legs were no longer holding her up. "How did you—" "It's our job, Miss Harvey," Keisha replied calmly. "What happened the night you met your aunt?" Lauren rubbed her temples as if she had a sudden headache. "I came to ask for money, yes, again. Aunt Penelope had helped me before, but I lost it all again," she said quietly, looking down at the floor. "She said no, said she wouldn't indulge my addiction anymore, that I needed professional help, not money." "And how did you react?" Keisha asked. "I begged her." Lauren's voice shook. I told her that Stone was dangerous, that he was threatening me. She was adamant, said she loved me and that she couldn't continue to be complicit in my self-destruction. And that's when you got angry? Keisha pressed. No, Lauren exclaimed. I mean, yes, I was upset, but I wasn't mad at her. I was more mad at myself. I left around 11:30. My aunt was alive, I swear to you. The cameras recorded you leaving at 22:30, Keisha said. And according to the coroner's preliminary assessment, death occurred between 22 and 24 hours. That's exactly the time period you were there, Miss Harvey. But I didn't kill her. Lauren had tears in her eyes. Yes, I needed the money. Yes, I was desperate to get it. But I would never hurt my aunt. Never. What about the robbery? Keisha asked. The safe was open. The jewelry was gone. I didn't take anything, Lauren exclaimed. I didn't even know where my aunt kept the jewelry. And I didn't need any jewelry. I needed money, cash. Keisha watched Lauren carefully. Her reaction seemed genuine, but the detective had seen some great actors among criminals. Miss Harvey, do you know anything about Marcus Williams? Lauren frowned. Who's that? The man your aunt has been corresponding with for the last year. An ex-convict from San Quentin. Lauren's eyes widened in surprise. Are you kidding? Aunt Penelope was corresponding with a prisoner? There must be some mistake. She would never... We have letters, Miss Harvey. Keisha interrupted her. Quite personal. Marcus Williams was released 2 weeks ago and is now a wanted man. Oh my God, Lauren whispered. I had no idea. My aunt didn't say anything. She suddenly turned even paler. Do you think he could have? We're considering all the possibilities, Keisha said evasively. But so far we have no record of his presence in Auckland on the night of the murder. I didn't kill my aunt, Lauren said firmly, overcome with emotion. And I'm willing to take a lie detector test, DNA samples, anything. My only fault is that I lied about my visit. Keisha nodded, making notes in her notebook. We're going to need an official statement, and I wouldn't leave town anytime soon if I were you, Miss Harvey. When Keisha returned to the station, Logan had already obtained a search warrant for Lauren's house and organized a stakeout. What do you think? He asked when Keisha recounted her conversation with the suspect. She's either telling the truth or she's a damn good actress, Keisha replied. But she has a strong motive and no alibi. What about Penelope's hard drive? Forensics was able to check it out? Yeah, they just sent over the report. Logan handed her a folder. Mostly the usual stuff. Business, accounts, personal photos. But there was something interesting. Recent search queries and browser history. Keisha looked through the list. In the last days before her death, Penelope had searched for information about Marcus Williams, his crime and elder fraud. It sounds like she was starting to suspect something, Keisha said thoughtfully. Maybe he'd contacted her after his release, and something in his behavior had alerted her. It's possible, Logan agreed. But the cameras didn't pick him up outside the house, and so far all the evidence points to Lauren. Let's wait for the results of the search, Keisha said. In the meantime, we need to look harder for Williams. He's a parole violator who may have skipped town or even the state. The search of Lauren's apartment took several hours. Detectives found numerous bills with delinquency marks, several eviction notices, and threatening notes from creditors. But no trace of stolen jewelry or other evidence linking her to the murder. The results aren't conclusive, Logan admitted, as he and Keisha went over the tech report. Yes, she was in financial trouble. Yes, she was desperate for money. But there was no direct evidence that she was involved in the murder. What about the prints on the murder weapon? Keisha asked. Only smudged partial prints, unidentifiable, Logan replied. The statue had been wiped down regularly during cleaning, so it wasn't surprising. Keisha drummed her fingers on the table thoughtfully. I think we're missing something important, she said. It's all too obvious. Lauren needs the money. Lauren gets the inheritance. Lauren was in the house the night of the murder. It's textbook. But where's the motive for the robbery? Why take the jewelry if she's going to get it as an heiress anyway? Maybe she needed money fast, Logan suggested. Sell the jewelry on the black market, pay off her debts, and then get the rest of the inheritance. Maybe, Keisha nodded, but something's bothering me. These searches Penelope made about Marcus Williams shortly before his death. It's too strange a coincidence. She suddenly straightened up and turned to Logan. Check again all of Penelope's bank transactions for the last 2 weeks, and pull her cell phone records. Williams may have contacted her after her release after all. Logan nodded and got to work. An hour later, he beckoned Keisha over, pointing to the computer screen. Look, 2 days ago, Penelope received a call from an unknown number. The conversation lasted almost 30 minutes, and right after that, she made internet inquiries about Marcus Williams. Trace that number, Keisha said quickly. It could be our lead. By the evening of that day, they had enough evidence to request an arrest warrant for Lauren Harvey. She was apprehended as she left the office and taken to the station for questioning. In the interrogation room, Lauren looked haggard, but held herself with confidence. "I didn't kill my aunt," she repeated for the umpteenth time. "Yes, I was there. Yes, I needed the money. But I didn't hurt her." At that moment, an officer approached them with a sealed envelope. "Detective Thompson, urgent for you. The forensic results." Keisha quickly opened the envelope and ran her eyes over the report. Then she slowly looked up at Logan. "We have new evidence," she said, "and possibly a new suspect. Partial fingerprint on the back of the statue." Keisha Thompson put the forensics report on the table and looked at Logan. "A match to the database. Marcus Williams." Logan Sharp silently took the report, quickly ran his eyes over the text, and looked up at his partner. "So he was there after all." Keisha nodded, feeling the familiar tension building inside, the sense that the case was beginning to come into focus. "We've been following a false trail all this time. Lauren visited her aunt, but left before the murder happened." She was telling the truth. "But then how did Williams end up in the house?" Logan rubbed his chin. "He's not on the cameras." "He's not on the footage we have," Keisha corrected. "Maybe he came from the other side, or used a blind spot. We need to check every possible route to the house." "We need to question Lauren again," Logan said, "and find Williams. Now." An hour later, Lauren Harvey was back in the interrogation room. She looked exhausted after a night in the holding cell. "Miss Harvey," Keisha began, "we have a new development. We found Marcus Williams' fingerprint on the murder weapon." Lauren straightened, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "So, you believe me? I didn't kill my aunt?" "We're considering all the possibilities," Keisha replied. "I need to ask you some follow-up questions. Are you sure you've never met Marcus Williams?" "Absolutely," Lauren answered firmly. "I didn't even know he existed until you mentioned him." "Did you notice anything unusual about your aunt's house during your last visit?" Keisha continued. "Something out of place? Signs of someone's presence? Maybe someone called or came by?" Lauren thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No, nothing like that. We were talking in the living room. Everything looked normal." "No strangers outside the house when you left?" "No, the street was deserted," Lauren replied. "I left in a bad mood, focused on my problems. My aunt refused to give me the money. I was upset." She lowered her eyes. Keisha nodded and stood up. "Thank you for your cooperation, Miss Harvey. You remain in custody for now, but we are continuing our investigation." Back in the office, Keisha found Logan at his computer with an excited expression on his face. "I've got a lead," he said without taking his eyes off the screen. "I checked all the motels and rental apartments within a 2-mile radius of Penelope's house. A man named Michael West checked into one of them 3 weeks ago, paid a month's rent in cash." "How does that help us?" Keisha asked. Logan turned the monitor around, showing the man's motel surveillance photo. "Because Michael West is Marcus Williams." Keisha stepped closer, scrutinizing the picture. Despite the baseball cap pulled over his eyes and the overgrown beard, it was definitely Williams. 3 weeks ago," she said thoughtfully. "Right after he was released, he'd been planning this for a long time. And he chose a motel near Penelope's house," Logan added. "Clearly not a coincidence." "Is he still there?" "According to the receptionist, he didn't come back last night." "Send an extraction team," Keisha ordered, "and a warrant to search his room. We need to find him before he leaves town." Marcus Williams's room in a cheap motel on the outskirts of Oakland looked austere, minimal, as if the occupant were ready to bolt at a moment's notice. But the detectives were lucky. In the trash can, they found crumpled sheets of paper with sketches of Penelope's house plan and notes on the possible location of valuables. He was definitely planning a robbery. Keisha said, smoothing one of the sheets. Look, it even marked the approximate location of the safe. And this, Logan handed her a small notebook. Penelope's schedule, habits, regular visitors. He watched her. Keisha leafed through the book, feeling a growing unease. Lauren's visits were noted here as well. A niece, usually on Tuesdays and Fridays, stays for an hour or two. He knew about everyone who visited the house. And this could be important. Logan showed her the smartphone. Our techs checked calls from an unknown number that contacted Penelope. The phone was purchased with cash 3 weeks ago, now inactive. But the last tower activation was this morning, 5 miles away. The dock district? Keisha quickly checked the map on her phone. He could be planning on leaving the city by sea. I'll send patrols, Logan nodded. But it's a big area, lots of warehouses and abandoned buildings. Then we'll need help, Keisha decided. Contact the harbor police and check all the transportation companies. He might have booked a ticket under the name Michael West. The next 6 hours passed in a tense search. Several police teams combed the dock area. Toward evening, one of the patrols reported a suspicious man seen near the warehouses on the north end of the harbor. Keisha and Logan arrived on the scene 20 minutes later. The old warehouses, surrounded by rusting containers, looked especially ominous in the dusk. We'll split up, Logan suggested. I'll take the east side. Keisha nodded, checked her weapons, and headed toward the western edge of the complex. It was semi-dark between the containers, and the metallic echo of footsteps gave the feeling of constant pursuit. She moved cautiously, listening for every sound, when she spotted a shadow slipping between the two far containers. Oakland police! Freeze! Keisha shouted, pointing her gun in the direction of the movement. The shadow froze, then tore away. Keisha rushed in pursuit, simultaneously calling for backup on the radio. Suspect is heading west, toward the warehouse area exit, she reported on the run. Marcus, and it was definitely him, was looping between containers, trying to throw off the pursuit. But years of police work had made Keisha tough and fast. The distance between them was shrinking. Suddenly, Marcus found himself at a dead end. A wall of containers towered in front of him, blocking the way. He turned around sharply, and Keisha saw the panic in his eyes. Don't move! She commanded, gun at the ready. Hands behind your head, Marcus! He hesitated for a moment, as if considering the possibility of resistance, but then slowly raised his hands and knelt down. This is a mistake, he said hoarsely. You don't understand. I'll explain all your rights to you at the station, Keisha replied, cautiously approaching to cuff him. Logan showed up a minute later with 2 patrol officers. Marcus Williams was finally taken into custody. In the interrogation room, Marcus remained silent for the first 2 hours, refusing to answer questions without an attorney. But when he was presented with all the evidence he had found, the fingerprint on the murder weapon, plans of Penelope's house, records of her schedule, and surveillance footage showing him watching the house, his composure began to crack. I wasn't going to kill her, he finally said, looking down at the table. It wasn't part of the plan. Tell us your plan, Marcus, Keisha said softly, sensing he was ready to talk. Williams sighed, then looked up. I picked her while still in prison. I was looking for wealthy single women who participate in prisoner pen pal programs. Penelope was the perfect target, rich, lives alone, needs companionship. And you started corresponding with her, Logan continued. Yes, Marcus nodded. At first it was just part of the plan, to gain her trust, to learn about her life, her values, her daily routine. But she was... He paused, searching for words. She was kinder than I expected. She sent me books, asked my opinion, told me about her travels. But that didn't stop you, Keisha said stiffly. Marcus lowered his eyes. No. When I got out, I already knew I was going to rob her. I rented a room nearby, watched the house, studied habits. I called her, told her I wanted to meet her in person to thank her for her support. And she said yes, Keisha stated. Yes, Marcus looked up again, but not right away. She was careful. Said she wanted to know more about my crime first. I think something alerted her. Maybe she started checking up on me. We saw her searches, Logan confirmed. She was looking for information about you and Elder Fraud. Yeah, she was smarter than I thought, Marcus grinned bitterly. But I insisted on seeing her anyway. I told her I was leaving town, that I wanted to say goodbye. She agreed. What happened the night of the murder? Keisha asked. Tell us everything. Marcus hunched over as if under the weight of memories. I got to the house around 9 o'clock at night, but I saw she had a visitor, a young woman. They were arguing about something. I could see through the window. I stepped back and waited, watching from a safe distance. After about an hour, the woman left, looking upset. And you decided to act? Logan asked. Yes, Marcus nodded. I waited a little longer, then called Penelope. Told her I was there for her, that I really wanted to see her. She agreed, though she sounded wary. He paused, gathering his thoughts. When I arrived, she met me in the living room. She was tense, not as friendly as in the letters. We talked. I tried to reassure her, to gain her trust. She offered tea, went to the kitchen. How did you know the woman you saw was the niece? Keisha asked. Penelope had mentioned her in letters, and I've seen her before when I was watching the house, Marcus replied. The plan was simple. Wait for the right moment, search the house, find the valuables, and escape. But something went wrong, Logan prompted. Marcus took a deep breath. While we were talking, I mentioned a detail from one of her letters, something personal, and she suddenly changed her face. Said she'd never written to me about it. I realized she was testing me. He rubbed his face with his hands. She asked me directly why I really came. Said she was making inquiries, that she knew about my past victims, that she was going to call my parole officer. I panicked. And I grabbed the bronze statue, Keisha finished. Yes, Marcus replied faintly. It was an impulsive decision. I hit her, and she fell. I didn't mean to kill her, I swear. I just wanted her to be quiet, to give myself time to get away. But she was dead, Logan said stiffly. Marcus nodded without raising his eyes. I realized it right away. And I panicked even more. I went looking for valuables, money, anything. I searched the office, found the safe, opened it, and there was only jewelry. I took them, but I needed cash. And you didn't find it, Keisha said. No, Marcus shook his head. I looked everywhere, turned the whole house upside down, but nothing. Then I heard a noise outside, got scared, and ran away. He sold the jewelry the next day to a fence for a third of its value. There was a heavy silence in the room. Where is the money now? Logan asked. Spent some of it on the ticket, Marcus answered. I was going to leave tonight on a freighter. The rest is in the motel, under the mattress. Keisha slowly gathered the papers from the desk. Marcus Williams, you are charged with the murder of Penelope Harvey, robbery, and parole violation. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The next morning, Keisha personally informed Lauren Harvey that she was free and that Marcus Williams had confessed. I can't believe it, Lauren whispered, wiping away her tears. Poor Aunt Penelope. She had so much faith in people, in their kindness. Even after all my mistakes, she didn't turn her back on me. I'm sorry we suspected you, Keisha said sincerely. But all the evidence pointed. I understand, Lauren interrupted her. You were just doing your job, and I did lie to you about my visit. That's my fault. She was quiet for a moment, then added more quietly, the last thing I said to her was to ask for money, and she was worried about me, wanting to help me with my addiction, not indulge it. I left angry, disappointed. If only I'd known I'd never see her again. Keisha put a hand on her shoulder. Don't blame yourself. You couldn't have known what was going to happen. After Lauren left, Keisha returned to her office where Logan was gathering paperwork to finalize the case. We're not likely to get the jewelry back, he said. The fence Williams described is known in criminal circles, but he's elusive. He's probably melted it down or moved it out of state by now. At least the killer's been caught, Keisha said. And Lauren will get her inheritance. Maybe it will help her start a new life. Logan nodded. You know what bothers me most about this case? How easily Williams came to trust Penelope. An older, lonely woman who craves companionship. For a predator like Williams, they're easy prey, Keisha agreed. He took advantage of her loneliness, her kindness, built a relationship for months, only to rob her in the end. And kill, Logan added grimly. Keisha gathered her things, getting ready to go home after a long day. Case closed, she said, but somehow there was no joy. There never is in cases like this, Logan replied. But at least justice was served. Williams will get what he deserves. Keisha nodded, glancing around the board of pictures of Penelope Harvey, a woman who had sought friendship and found death at the hands of a man she trusted. It was a bittersweet but all too common story in her practice as a detective. "See you tomorrow, Logan," she said, turning to leave. New day, new cases. But she knew she would long remember this case, and the woman whose trust and loneliness had been her undoing.